Hello everyone, welcome back to Haein Philosophy. I'm Yu Sun-bok. In our previous episode, we explored the first stratagem of the 36 stratagems, deceive the heavens to close the sea. Its lesson was both simple and profound. The most effective deception often hides in what seems ordinary. When something becomes familiar, people stop questioning it. Today, we move on to the second stratagem, Besiege Wei to Rescue Zhao.围魏救赵. At first, the title sounds almost illogical. If the state of Zhao is under attack, shouldn't you send your army to Zhao? Why attack the state of Wei instead? How can attacking one country possibly save another? The answer lies in one of the most brilliant strategic decisions in Chinese history. It teaches us that the best solution is not always found where the problem appears. Sometimes, instead of confronting an enemy's strengths, you change the situation so that the enemy is forced to move. That is the essence of today's stratagem. To understand this strategy, we first need to meet the man behind it. His name was Sonbin. Many people confuse him with Sonja, the legendary author of The Art of War. Although both were brilliant military thinkers, they were different people who lived in different generations. Sonbin lived during the Warring States period, a time when powerful kingdoms fought constantly for territory, influence, and survival. It was an age when strategy mattered more than numbers, and a single decision could determine the fate of an entire kingdom. But why was he called Sonbin? The answer is tragic. According to historical tradition, Sonbin studied military strategy under the same master as another gifted student, Haein. At first, they were fellow disciples, but admiration gradually turned into jealousy. Haein realized that Sonbin possessed an extraordinary talent for military strategy. Fearing that one day his fellow student would surpass him, he lured Sonbin to the state of Wei and falsely accused him of a crime. The punishment was brutal. Sonbin's kneecaps were removed, leaving him permanently disabled. He would never walk normally again. The character Bin refers to this very punishment. Ironically, the name by which history remembers him is not his original name, but the mark of his suffering. His body was broken, but his mind was not. Unable to fight as a soldier, he became something even more powerful, a strategist, whose ideas would influence military thought for centuries. The story we will explore today takes place during the famous Battle of Gerung. It is one of the greatest examples of winning a war without fighting, where the enemy expects. The state of Wei, one of the strongest powers of the time, launched an invasion against the state of Zhao. Unable to withstand the attack, Zhao desperately appealed to the state of Jie for military assistance. The king of Jie appointed General Zhengyi to command the army. Sonbin served as his chief military advisor. Everyone expected that Jie's army would march directly toward Zhou. After all, that seemed to be the obvious choice. If your ally is under attack, you go to help. That is what almost anyone would do. But Sun Bin saw the situation differently. Instead of sending the army toward the battlefield, he proposed something that seems almost unbelievable. Attack the capital of Wei, not Zhou, Wei. It sounded completely unreasonable. Why ignore the battlefield where your ally was fighting for survival? Why march in the opposite direction? What did Sun Bin see that everyone else had overlooked? The answer came one of the greatest strategic principles in the 36 Stratagems, and it continues to shape military strategy, business, politics, and negotiation even today. We will follow Sun Bin's reasoning step by step and discover why the shortest path to victory is sometimes the one that never leads to the battlefield. Before we examine the original text of the stratagem, let us first see how it was actually put into practice. History often explains strategy better than theory alone. The story begins when the state of Wei invaded the state of Zhou. Wei was one of the most powerful kingdoms of the Warring States period. Its army was experienced, well-equipped, and confident. Zhou, unable to resist the invasion, sent an urgent request to the state of Jie. It was a desperate plea for help. The king of Jie accepted the request. He appointed General Zhang Yi to lead the expedition, with Sun Bin serving as his chief strategist. Before the army set out, Zhang Yi turned to the Sun Bin and asked the most important question. How should we fight this war? Sun Bin did not answer immediately with a battle plan. Instead, he offered an analogy. He said, someone who untangles a knot does not strike it with his fists. Someone who stops a fight does not join the fighting. It is a remarkably simple image. Imagine two people locked in a fierce struggle. If you rush between them, throwing punches, you only become part of the conflict. You do not end the fight. You merely create a larger one. The same is true of a tangled rope. You cannot untie a knot by pulling harder. Force only tightens it. To solve the problem, you must understand how the knot was formed. Then, with patience, you loosen it from the right place. Sun Bin was saying that war follows the same principle. If two armies are already locked in battle, joining them head-on may be the worst possible choice. Instead, find a point that holds the entire situation together. Strike there. He continued, attack what is vital. Strike where the enemy is empty. Disrupt his position and the situation will unravel by itself. This is the heart of Besiege Wei to Rescue Zhao. Do not attack where the enemy is strongest. Attack where he cannot afford to lose. Sun Bin then examined the condition of the Wei army. Its elite soldiers were already fighting far from home in Zhou. Their energy, their supplies, and their attention all focused on the front lines. Back in Wei, only older soldiers and reserve forces remained to protect the capital. In other words, Wei's strength was concentrated in one place. Its weakness had been left somewhere else. That weakness was exactly where Sun Bin intended to strike. Instead of marching toward Zhou, he advised General Zhengyi to move rapidly toward Daliang, the capital of Wei. Capture the roads. Threaten the capital forced the enemy to make a choice. If we continue its invasion of Zhou, its own homeland would be in danger. If it returned home, the siege of Zhou would collapse. Either way, we would lose the initiative. Sun Bin was not trying to defeat the enemy through greater force. He was changing the enemy's priorities. He intended to make Wei abandon its own plan. And that, as we shall soon see, is exactly what happened. The story of the Battle of Gelung illustrates an important strategic principle. The compilers of the 36 Stratagems summarize that principle in just 2 short lines. Original text. 공적, 불력, 군적. Rather than confronting the enemy as a whole, it is better to divide them. 적양, 불력, 적음. Rather than confronting what is strong, it is better to attack what is weak. At first glance, this may sound like common sense. Of course, it is easier to fight a divided enemy than a united one. And naturally, it is safer to attack weakness rather than strength. But Sun Bin's idea goes much deeper than that. He is not simply telling us to choose an easier battle. He is teaching us how to change the entire balance of conflict. Let us return to the Battle of Gelung. Suppose that Jie had marched directly to rescue Zhou, what would have happened? Jie would have faced the full strength of Wei's main army. The enemy was already assembled, already prepared, and already in control of the battlefield. That is exactly what the stratagem calls confronting the enemy as a whole. 공적, an enemy with all of its strength concentrated. Sun Bin rejected that approach. 군적, an enemy whose forces have been divided. By threatening Wei's capital, he forced the invading army to abandon its siege and march home. The moment we turned back, its forces no longer united. Its original plan had collapsed. The battlefield had changed without fighting the strongest part of Wei's army. Sun Bin had already taken away his greatest advantage. The second line reveals the same idea from another perspective. 적양, 불력, 적음. Here, the words yang and do not simply refer to the philosophy of and yang. They describe 2 different conditions of an opponent. Yang represents what is visible, strong, active, and well defended. It is the enemy's main force, his confidence, his momentum, and the place where he expects to be attacked. on the other hand, represents what is hidden, weak, unprepared, or neglected. It is the place the enemy believes is safe. Sun Bin's advice is simple. Do not attack where the enemy is waiting for you. Attack where he is not. Notice what happened at Wei's capital. Most of the elite soldiers had already left to invade Zhou. The capital was protected mainly by older soldiers and reserve troops. Militarily, it was vulnerable. Strategically, it was indispensable. By attacking the weakest point, Sun Bin threatened what we valued most: the capital, its government, its people, its future. And suddenly, the strongest army on the battlefield had no choice but to retreat. This is why Besiege Wei to rescue Zhou is much more than a military tactic. It teaches us that true strategy is not measured by how fiercely we confront strengths, but by how wisely we reshape the situation itself. In the next part, we will see why the authors of the 36 Stratagems connected his military strategy to the I Ching, 역경, and how the wisdom of hexagram 41, decrees Sun, reveals the default principle behind Sun Bin's strategy. The authors of the 36 Stratagems did something rather unexpected. Instead of ending with military theory, they quoted the I Ching, an ancient Chinese classic, best known as the Book of Changes. Why? Because the deepest principles of strategy are not only about war. They are also about understanding how change itself works. The passage comes from hexagram 41, Sun, usually translated as decrees. At first, the sound is negative. Why would a military victory be explained through the idea of decreasing? The answer lies in what the hexagram really teaches. Decrease does not simply mean losing something. It means giving up what is less important to achieve something greater. Sometimes reducing one thing creates the conditions for another to grow stronger. In traditional imagery, hexagram Sun is formed by a mountain above a lake. As the water in the lake gradually decreases, more of the mountain becomes visible. The mountain has not grown taller. It only appears higher because the water below has been reduced. The image teaches a simple lesson. When something is wisely reduced, something else can rise. The stratagem quotes one sentence from this hexagram. Original text. 손기질 사천. Reduce your own haste and make your opponent move. Then there will be joy and no regret. The key word is 사. It does not simply mean to move. It means to make someone else move. That single character reveals the true meaning of this hexagram. At first, this word seems unrelated to military strategy. But when we return to the Battle of Gerung, its meaning becomes surprisingly clear. When Zhou called for help, Everyone expected Zhao to march immediately to the battlefield. That would have been the natural reaction. Sun Bin chose otherwise. He did not rush directly to Zhao. In other words, he reduced his own urgency. He gave up the obvious move. That is the meaning of Sun. Not sacrificing soldiers, not accepting defeat, but setting aside an immediate impulse in order to gain a greater advantage. And what happened? By threatening the capital of Wei, Sun Bin forced the Wei army to move. That is precisely what the next means by 사천, called swift movement. Instead of marching into the enemy's trap, Sun Bin forced Wei to march into a trap he had prepared. The initiative changed hands. The battlefield changed. The balance of power changed. Without realizing it, we had begun fighting according to Sun Bin's plan. When the Wei army hurried home, Sun Bin anticipated its route. He positioned his troops near Gyarong and waited. The exhausted soldiers of Wei marched directly into an ambush. There, Zhao won a decisive victory. Yet the victory was not achieved because Sun Bin possessed more soldiers. It was achieved because he understood how to make his opponent change the situation to his advantage. This is why Besiege Wei to Rescue Zhao remains relevant beyond the battlefield. In business, a company does not always compete head-on with the market leader. Sometimes it succeeds by changing the rules of competition. In diplomacy, nations often influence events indirectly rather than through direct confrontation. Even in our personal lives, not every problem should be solved by pushing harder. Sometimes the wiser choice is to step back, change the situation, and allow the problem itself to move. The second stratagem teaches us a timeless lesson. The strongest strategy is not always to confront strengths. Sometimes it is to change the circumstances so completely that your opponent must abandon his own plan. That is the wisdom of Besiege Wei to Rescue Zhao. In our next episode, we will explore the third stratagem of the 36 stratagems. Kill with a borrowed knife. 차도 살인. Until next time, thank you for watching. This has been Haein Asian Philosophy. I'm Yoo Sun-bok. See you again.